Then we're just about to go for a walk around the pond, which is part of our garden. The house sits in about 3 acres. Here we've got the chapel, which is basically the entrance to the greenhouse. The monument. Buried just there is my Great Dane, Jack. And buried there is my last Labrador, Lucy, and in the middle about 5 rats, pet rats. There's Gracie, sat on the lawn, enjoying the sunshine. We've been cutting bits off trees, so I'm pulling a couple of hedges up, so there's going to be rubbish all over the garden because you can't leave it alone. Right, we'll wander off into the wilder part of the garden, which we refer to as the pond, because there's a pond in the middle of it. Gracie, so she's just wrapping a tree around my legs. Slight incline, and of course, having heart failure, I do get out of breath, so excuse me for that. Dog and tree. What are you doing? She can never walk in front all the time. She's just got to stop and then come up behind you again, as dogs do. Quick look over to the left, the pond from up here. It's one of 2 ponds actually, that's the large pond. We had that dug out about 30 years ago now. In fact, they finished doing it on the 26th of November. Can't remember, I think it was 1992, 91 or 92, but I'm not quite sure. And that was the day I moved in. That's when we came here. The house was built in a field. We've got some lovely flowering cherries, which I'll get a better view of. I'll get a better view of in a bit. Right. There's kind of a low road to the left, which goes right past the pond. Or we can keep going to the right and go around the edge. Hear the bird song, I hope you can hear that. Excuse me while I just step through a tree. The evergreen oak. There's a quick view back again. See how woody the garden's become. All these trees we planted 30 years ago, or 29 years ago. The evergreen oaks look a bit mangy at this time of year, but they're just starting to get their new growth from. And we get quite a few muntjac deer in the garden. Hardly call it a stick, can we? Oh, for the joys of having a dog. Of course, when it comes to mowing the paths and the lawn, Roger's going to go bananas because there'll be sticks all over it. Right, this is the top pond. And there are hundreds of tadpoles in there at the moment. I'll try and get a picture in a bit. There's my girl. She likes to break the branches off, which still keeps going back for the big bit. There's a field of rape in flower the other side of the road, which is just kind of there. Believe it or not, we chopped about 30 trees down in here last year. Thinned them out a bit because it was getting so overgrown that a lot of the trees were beginning to suffer. And, just have a quick look at the top pond now. All this silver birch that's grown around the edge of it. It's not actually good because the top pond's lined and the silver birch is more than likely going to pierce the liner. But just look to my right, there's the bottom pond, the big one, and turn to my left. That splash obviously means Labrador in water. I don't know if you can see hundreds of tadpoles in the pond. Come on out, Gracie. When we built the ponds, there was a pond being filled in at, I think it was Tetney, and we had 2 dustbin loads of newts and frogs and toads out of that pond before it got totally filled in, and we put them in our pond. We used to have a couple of koi carp which are now gone, I think. One's certainly dead. I haven't seen the other one for a few years, well, a couple of years. We'd no idea where they came from, but they certainly didn't come in with the frog spawn and the toads and things, because they were actually already 2 or 3 inches long and we would have seen them. So, nice little bladed blade here. Oh, lovely little view. And you can see how close we are to the road now, which is just through that hedge there. For a country lane that goes nowhere, it's 5 miles down to the bottom and the River Witham. There's a lot of traffic. My brother lives next door but 2 at the moment, and he's 3 miles away. But the village of Dunstan is only about half a mile away in the other direction. There's a laurel hedge all the way around the garden on two sides, the roadside and the public track side. There we are. All this lush green growth here, Rose of Shannon. We picked a couple of small clumps from Noddy's father's house before he sold it, planted them round, planted them on this bank, and it just flourishes. We did originally have some gorse here, but it became too weedy, too lanky, and it just looked horrid. The flowers were beautiful, but it looked horrid in the rest of the year, so it came out. There's a cedar tree here. Got a little story. This tree was planted many years after the other trees, and I'll get a better view of it in a bit. Now, we call this tree Louise because a friend of ours was going to the tip with a 1'6" high tree covered in white fake snow, which they'd been using as a Christmas tree, and rather than dump it, we'd had somebody pulled the tree up. They'd been in the garden and pulled the tree up, a small tree, so we just plopped Louise in the hole, covered her up, and she flourished. She loves it, so happy ending for what was a Christmas tree. My laburnum tree, the tree with no leaves on at the moment, it's an Indian bean tree. Over here's a pond stretching up, and you can see how big Louise has grown. Bearing in mind she was planted in the ground many years after the other trees. She loved it. She's a beautiful tree. Over in the distance there we can see the flowering cherries. I did neglect to mention that on that opposite bank, where that tree is that's almost in the centre, just to the right of that, there are 6 Labradors buried. Ben, Todd, Amber, Rhea, Sandy, Thatcher. Ben, Todd, Amber, Rhea, Sandy, yes, that's 6. They were all alive at the same time and died off, so we planted them all together. On that bank as well, there's 2 Rottweilers which belong to my friend in Manchester, who's now sadly died. And somewhere on the other side as well, a friend buried his Labrador, black Labrador, called Callum. So, that's a bit of what was the front lawn, which, let's face it, when you've got so many trees, so much grass to mow, you find that trees and rough grass is a much nicer alternative. There's a lot of yucky stuff on top of the pond at the moment. There always is at this time of year, but in there are all the brown flecks. It's a lily bed, and there are 2 or 3 giant lily beds in there. Giant, I mean as in big, not the lilies are giant. So loads of bulrushes, which I wish weren't there, but they are. And down in the front here, and it goes all the way around the pond, we have flags, and down that side as well we have a lot of dogwood, which have beautiful stems in the winter, but they're hard work keeping them chopped back. Silver birch, which is self-sown. Noddy's there were crocus, giant crocus. They tend to flower without the leaves. You don't get the leaves and the flowers at the same time. It's a bit bizarre, but there we go. Another huge cedar which we planted. I think that one's a glauca. Two cast iron posts which we rescued from one of our barns, well, wagon novels, which was falling down, and we put them there in the summer or later in the year. They're covered in this golden hop which is growing around them. Now these trees we grow obviously on the front lawn for the bark. The trees are lovely in their own right, but the bark is white and it's just very pleasant to look out on the kitchen window. A couple of big bits of limestone which we upended. We got those from a local quarry. Through there. That's Roddy's vegetable garden at the back there. Right. There's the house and the garage and the telephone exchange and my kiosk. There's a big pile of branches there off the fig tree at the moment, but that's just a pebbled area with conifers in it. Let's walk up here. I said there was a laurel hedge around the outside, which there is, but on the inside of the laurels there are silver birch and a few holly, and further inside than them we have this yew. So from the outside it looks like laurel, and from the inside it's yew. A couple of aces, one there, which are glorious, and this little folly which we call the erection. We had a couple of chapel window frames and we used them as formers. Dog enjoying a play with a tree guard there, and got the brickwork up and then got it roofed. We found a finial, I don't know if you can see that at the top, which we decided to put up on top of it. So all in all, down there's a little pile of logs. We do use a lot of the logs for firewood, and we have a lot of wood on the farm that we use for firewood, but there's an old copper there from out one of the wash houses. But we leave log piles around for the hedgehogs. And that's a lovely view through the erection. As you can see, we will be able to in a second, I think. Owl pellets, which means we must have an owl up there somewhere. They're tucked away at the back. After that, well, it stops to eat here. That's the direction. Little steep peep through there from the drive down to the house. Well, we'll go down the drive. This was my very first attempt at laying some paving. Copper beech hedge. Come on, Gray. Turn around circle with got a little pond in the middle covered in ivy. One of the balls is missing because the milkman ran it over, or he burst into it, but basically it's a few sleepers. That is a cattle trough which we sunk into the ground, put a few sleepers around it, let nature take its course. Now, here's a view of the garden and another cedar. Now I get my cedars muddled up, but I know we've got a cedar atlantica, a cedar deodoris and a cedar glaucus. So you've got 1, 2, 3, so I'm not quite sure which is which. And little hole in the hedge, so I don't have to walk all the way round. We put the little hole. If you look, that's how much gap there is between the two hedges, the trees in the middle. Anyway, going through the hole onto our track. The rest of the garden is a paddock.